Hello, I'm Mr. Pibbles, but you can call me Peter. And welcome back to our Challenge Park series here in Planet Coaster 2. Now in our last episode we happened to make this, which is our lovely new go-kart course. And some lucky fella has just won the race. But yes, so as you can see, between the last episode and this one, I've got a little bit done in terms of kind of starting the theming. But we're going to finish it off in this episode as well as doing a few other little things just to make this really pop. So without further ado, let's roll the time lapse. Yes, welcome to the time lapse, and I will start off by sincerely apologising for his audio quality. You know, I recorded that entire video, the entirety of the beginning and end of this video, and then I realised that my mic was backwards, so unfortunately we'll have to deal with slightly subpar audio quality on that, but otherwise I'm here and I'm, you know, perfectly well. So what we're doing today is we are just sorting out the outside of this lovely building. And I'm starting off with this trim. Now, I found this, I believe it's part of the resort decorations. And it's sort of got this tiled look to it. And I thought, actually, putting the tiles in red with a black trim around the top, I think that looks really nice, and it kind of breaks up the white walls, but also, you know, black, white, and red are sort of, you think, racing colours, you do think. You know, black and white for the checkered flag, red for the car. So that's all good, and I'm back here with my favourite roofing technique, that being adding the trim using these lovely poles, and they're in a black today, which isn't something I've done before, because, you know, I've been very much, this trim kind of brings the colour, but because the colour's elsewhere and because everything's white, I just thought, you know, actually making it dark black would kind of help add a little bit of that variety to the building. And you can see I'm doing the same here on the corners, which ultimately I really like the way that this building turns out. You know, I'm going for that sort of slightly musty, slightly dusty old building that's been here since the 60s. I don't think you see it in this episode, but I have built some a sign for this whole kind of place using art shapes, and I've done that off camera. But yes, this place was made canonically in the mid-60s, so I wanted it to have that sort of, timeless feel is the wrong phrasing. The right phrasing is, I want it to feel old. Very old. Which is where these bits come in, yes. These are the lovely sort of damaged brickwork decals. And I thought, actually, I haven't used these in a build yet because I've always gone for polished and clean or wood. And actually, now that I'm using brick, I'm able to kind of bring them in and make something that looks like it fits the sort of tired and dead aesthetic. And it's just perfect. It works so well. And again, I really like the way that this building turns out. So you can see me having a bit of a play around with bits and pieces here and there. Ultimately, I don't go in with them, and I just go and sort out the interior of here first, because, you know, I realised actually the inside of the queue was completely pitch black, which is something we don't want because, you know, people need to see in the queue, and obviously this will ultimately end up being sort of a locker room where you put on helmets and stuff for the place for the karting, and ultimately, you know, I make a start on it here, and then I go, actually, that doesn't look great. I'll figure out some other way to do it later, but that's fine. So I just get back on with these slightly tired and old things with these windows on the front. Again, I really wish these were see-through and that, you know, you put them down and they actually built a window into the building, but I do like the way that they look. I think especially with sort of those base colours of the blue, it sort of just fits the aesthetic really well. And we're coming back in with the damage again making it look crusty and dusty and all of that. And, you know, I really liked working with the damage pieces because it just, again, looked really sort of... To put it nicely, this building looks undesirable and untended, but that is exactly the vibe that I'm going for, and I think it works really, really well. And you can see me on the front of the building here trying to figure out what to do. So I've got this sort of red trim along there, and I tried a couple of different things, and ultimately I've gone for these bits of moss, which again I think just add to that whole tired aesthetic of the brick walls, and again it just makes it seem slightly dead, slightly kind of slightly old, but in a charming way. And then I finally bring out these lovely pieces. I was going to use them over at the other place, the little plaza we built opposite the Barnstormer, but ultimately I think they look a lot better here than when they did over there, and just this little weather vane on top adds so much, even if it's just a little. And then I come over here and I have a little bit of a look around, trying to figure out what to do next, and here we go. I'm adding text onto the building for the cafe, which is just the Racing Cafe at the moment. I might come up with a different name in the future. If one of you has a name you'd like me to name kind of the Racing Cafe, then please don't hesitate to put a comment in the comment section below for the Pit Stop Cafe if you've got any better names. And I'm just putting a few bits of this brick, kind of old brick decal over the top of these, just to make it look like, you know, these have weathered away. The letters have sort of died within the last, you know, 10, 15 years, and that it's slightly kind of undesirable again, but it looks good, I think. And obviously adding more moss as I do, to just make it look, again, slightly overgrown, but in a good way. And then I get these dancing flags back out. I really like these, and I wanted somewhere to use them, and I like the idea of having flags around here, but obviously I couldn't find anywhere for them. You'll see in a bit that I do, but not yet. And I'm just getting a bit of an AC unit on top of the building, just because it looks slightly silly, but I like it. I might in the future come back and make that smaller, but for now I think it looks good. And here I am playing around with these streamers again. I did toy around with having both big and small, and then I looked at it and went, that's way too much. So ultimately I just went for a couple on this block of concrete in the middle. Sort of, this is, you know, they can reroute and do different things here and there to make all of these different tracks out of this bigger track. And yeah, I'm now turning my attention to outside, where here I am just building a little bit of a centerpiece, because it was the one thing that this place was in need of, is just something to tie it all together. And ultimately I went for a little bit of a kind of proper racing car, or at least I would have if I had the time and patience to properly map this out. But instead I go for this sort of small, almost cartoonish variation on one, and I think it looks really cute and really sweet, and I think it works well for what it is. And sort of putting it on these angles here, so you know, you come into this area and you see the car just having a bit of a fly around on top of its pole. And yeah, it's slightly silly looking, but I like it. And
now we're getting onto just a little bit more foliage, just to hide little bits here and there, and just to add that little bit of green that this place sorely needs. So kind of adding bits of greenery in the middle of the track, around the track, and just around the gravel, just to make it look, again, a lot nicer than than the way it already looks. Just putting in these bits of green, again, the rose bushes. I really like the foliage in this game. I just wish we had just a little bit more. But I can live with what we have. Putting in these bushes, obviously the arrowwood that I like, the rose bushes, and now some plain rhododendrons. Without the flowers, because I think it looks better, and obviously without the flowers on it at all. And it's just that process of going, what do I put here and there? And actually this was the thing that tied this all together. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to put rocks in, and then I put rocks in and it looked a lot better than it did. A lot of these places, they'll have a lot of concrete around and a lot of tarmac and all that, but I think adding in these little bits of rock just works so well for what it is. And then just these little trees around these black poplars, they just break up the scenery in a way that actually I think this place needed. And you look at it now and it just feels quite sweet and small, which is fun. And obviously I come back down and have another little play around with flags to see if I can get them to work at all throughout here. Getting these flags in on there, and then trying them in a different colour, and then looking at it. And yeah, I've stuck with it for now, which is fun. But yes, you can see me now adding in a few more tables because this area just looked a little bare, and I think adding in more tables was what it needed. And that's another thing. The Pit Stop Cafe needed more tables, so I thought, what better way to do that than to put some tables outside? And it does need a couple more tables on top of that, so in between episodes I come out and I put a couple more down. And now I've started kind of looking at how this ties into the rest of the park, because obviously it's far away from everything at the moment. So what I'll ultimately do is I'll bring it up and kind of connect it to the other bit you can see here in a couple of episodes' time, once we fully get onto what we're doing in a few. And I do have some plans, some inspired by what some of you have said, and some of my own volition. But yes, you can see here I am adding in our next flat ride, the Hyperspin. And I had some really fun ideas with this, but I needed to get that in and open it up for a challenge, and that challenge has been completed, which means I get more money, which is always fun. But as you can see me here adding in some colours, and then ultimately I go back on these colours because I have a better idea once I have an idea for the name. And I'm sure you will see in a bit, but the idea is that obviously this ride spins, and I went, ooh, I can put a ceiling on this. So I put a ceiling on it, and I call it if you'll give me a couple of moments, not the DSS, the Hypno Spinner. So it's kind of got this idea of, you see these hypnosis people, and they have these spinning circular watches and stuff like that with the pattern on it. And I thought, what better way to kind of get a spinning ride in than something like this, and taking full advantage of the fact that you're able to connect things to the ride. So here I am getting a video screen in and getting it in the right place, all while in the background here I am trying to find the right thing to put on top of it. But yes, so as I say, this is a nice little flat ride. I add on the hypnosis thing, and then flipping that over, bringing it up to not what will be its final position, but a position, flipping it over, and then coming in. You can see it there. Obviously it is a bit low, but that's fine. And then this also toyed with another idea that I wanted to try out, which was making my own awning for a ride like this. Because you always see, these rides, they're never out in the open, they've always got some sort of awning over it, and this did take me a while to get properly right. But once I got something that I liked, I think it worked out okay. But yeah, you can see me here getting in the framework for this awning, and it's kind of trying to figure out what would work and what wouldn't work, and I go back and forth a bit with all of this, kind of getting it in and making it work. But again, I do think what I end up with ultimately works, because you see I bring these up and then I make the roof a bit taller, and I think that's just what this needed, is just a slightly taller roof. And speaking of the roof, we are in a little bit going to turn around and start sorting out the roof. After, of course, I've got a centre pole in the middle of this just to hold the roof up, because they'd have that. The idea is that this has all been painted on, but there we go, just centering that up. I think it looks a lot better than it did, and here we get to me trying to get a roof in. As I say, I know exactly what I'm trying to go for here, and I think it takes me a couple of attempts to get it right, but when I do get it right, it does look good. So it's one of the things that I've tried out in other places, never on stream or whatever like that. But it's just fun, kind of taking these, and then you'll see me here trying to look for pieces, but I can tell you for free that I don't use pieces. What I do is I take these and I duplicate them and move them around by a couple of degrees, so that it has sort of the illusion of being this one continuous wooden roof, which is quite fun, because it means that it's got the same consistency all the way around. It's got the same kind of levels, and you can see me here playing around with different colours. And kind of what I do is I isolate all of this just to make kind of separating out everything a lot easier, which is and was a good idea on my part, even if it takes me absolutely ages to isolate everything, which I'm not great at, but it's fine. So you can see me here just getting in these pieces in all these different colours, and then here I am just kind of duplicating everything to add it to its own building, because once it's on its own building, I'm then able to kind of separate everything out and kind of give it all these different colours, which again, ultimately, I don't like. I look at it and I go, that looks absolutely stupid. Let's take it all the way back to this. And so here we are back at the bare bones structure. That's a lot of this series, to be fair. Kind of doing something and then going, I don't like the way that looks. Let's do that again. And you can see me here coming up and properly doing this roof in the way that I initially wanted to and thought would look good, and I think ultimately it does. It's got these little cracks here and there, but I think it looks good because it has this circular quality to it, and it looks nice. And then I just you see me playing around with it there, but I get this chimney on top as just a bit of a centerpiece, and ultimately it looks good. I think it has almost a bandstand-esque quality that I think really works for this area. And you can see I'm adding my third different fence for the main park. So we've had the sort of fairy tale picket fence over in the kids area. We've had the sort of wooden slat painted fences in the centre of the park, and now we're on this, which is it's in the resort, and it's technically a balcony fence, but it's almost like a set of metal bars. And I think just adding this along here in this way just looks quite interesting, and it adds a bit of colour, and it almost makes it feel like a bit of a park. which is almost what I wanted to go for with this sort of a country park-esque, giving it almost a country park-esque quality. And in terms of sort of like gardens and stuff like that, I'll get into that further into the series because I've got ideas, again, which I'm not going to divulge quite yet because that's for me to know and for you to find out the more that you watch this, the Planet Coaster 2 Challenge series here on the Mr. Pibbles YouTube channel. I would say, I would make a joke and say TM, but I am not trademarked whatsoever. But yes, I'm getting these bits and pieces in along here. And you may be wondering to yourself, why did I get rid of the fences around the other side of the path? Well, that is because I'm going to build a new boundary for the ride using these. And I do it in quite a good way, just by kind of getting everything out and then rotating it. Simple as. But kind of getting all these bits here and there and making it circular and getting it all around this centre point just looks good and I like it. And I think ultimately it's what this ride needed to really just make it pop, as it were. And then there you can see me getting it all in and it all fits perfectly. And then it's just getting it, moving it around so it does properly kind of sit in the right place, which is fun. Now, opening those up and getting all of this to work. So, I believe we are coming up slowly on the end of this time-lapse segment. But if you have enjoyed this, then please do whatever he tells you at the end, that being liking, commenting, and subscribing. But yes, again, I will apologise in advance for the lack of competent microphonery at the end because, of course, it's me and I forgot to, again, turn my mic around. So my mic is in reverse, so I'm actually speaking into the back of it for this last section. So you'll have to apologise, you'll have to bear with the quality, but there we go. So if you have, again, enjoyed this, I will see you once we're back in real time. I'll see you in a mo. Well, welcome back to real time. We've got a little bit done in this episode, and I can't complain too much about it. Of course, we've started off by just finishing a lot of the detailing down here by the Pit Stop Cafe and our Pibbleville Raceway, which is fun. And obviously people are using this lovely little entrance down here, which I didn't show you at the start of the episode, but we now have a lovely piece of road that connects kind of the front of our park down to the side, which is fun. But yes, we finished that, and we've also added our new flat ride in the Hypno Spinner. So if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to give me a like, give me a comment, possibly even a follow if I am lucky enough, and I will see you in the next episode. Roll that outro.